We can't control the world around us, but we can control our own choices, behaviors, and actions. And if we want to rise above the turbulence around us, we have to have the resilience to adapt on demand. You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 316. And today, let's discover what it takes to rise above the noise and industry turbulence. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's your host, Melanie Benson, authority amplifier and possibility igniter for expert-based entrepreneurs. And today, I want to talk a little bit about rising above turbulence. So as we're dropping this episode, we have just entered into a new year. Happy New Year, everybody. And as we look at what's coming this year, this is the time where many people start to look at okay, what's going to be different? What am I going to achieve this year? What intentions am I setting? What's my theme? I also want to tackle something that comes up a lot in coaching in the Amplify Inner Circle program, and that is how to deal with turbulence. So here's the thing. We cannot control the world around us. We cannot control what happens in our industry. We often can't control what's happening, outside of our own behaviors, choices, and actions, but we can have a lot of control over how we navigate it. And so with the rumor being that we're going to have a bit of a turbulent year in the online market, especially for coaches and consultants and people who sell their expertise for a living, I think it's worth looking at how do we rise above that turbulence and almost I want to be bold enough to say become immune to it. I do believe that we have to have certain skill sets in order to be able to navigate anything that comes our way as an entrepreneur, and in particular when an industry goes through a lot of change and a lot of transformation and a lot of up-leveling, we have to figure out how to continue to keep the revenue flowing in and growing no matter what's going on around us. Now, one thing I'm super excited about as we go into this new year is the Ignite 2023 Mastermind. This is a special theme that I'm tackling in the Amplify Inner Circle this year, which is my mastermind I offer to expert-based business owners. And one of the key things we're looking at is how to ignite our impact, income, and influence no matter what's happening around us. So this episode's very timely. And I know a lot of people are looking at all right, what's going to be new this year? What am I going to do differently? I really want to encourage you to invest in you. Invest in your own rising tide. Invest in a coach and hopefully a mastermind that is going to challenge you to break free of a lot of the limits that you put on yourself and to double, triple, maybe even 10x your revenue and the reach of your business. I love helping entrepreneurs accomplish things they don't even know is possible by challenging just their whole paradigm of who they believe they can be and what they can achieve. So if that's speaking to you, there's still time to apply for this year. If you go to amplifyinnercircle.com and apply, you can search the page and see what it's about. And if it's speaking to you, apply. We're dropping in right away this year with a very powerful first quarter to rev up your revenue. So if that's on your plate and it's time to bring more cash in the door while you grow the reach of your impact, let's chat. Amplifyinnercircle.com. Now, let's talk about 3 key things that are necessary to rise above your industry turbulence. And this is a lot of my own, hard knocks coming to life. The first one is an action and a strategy, and it has a lot to do with relevance. And just a little backstory, as I entered into the coaching market in the year 2000, there was not the noise of so many people saying similar things. And so I had a luxury in that I could really stand out very easily. But as all transformation brings us, I had to adapt and I had to learn the power of relevance. And so what relevance means is that you know how to create offerings and create messaging and create an invitation that is really relevant to your ideal client. And if it's not relevant, this is a sign that you potentially are invisible to them. You are not even showing up on their radar. And that's why a lot of great coaches can literally be invisible in their market. A lot of great service providers don't have the clients that they need or want, and why amazing experts who are out there speaking and doing interviews are not building an audience is because they're whatever they're putting out in front of that audience isn't relevant to them at that time. I had a really interesting experience with this with a client a couple years ago who had come out of the education market, and she knew inside and out what educators needed in times like we're experiencing today with, the diversity issues, with so many new things that teachers are facing that they've never had to face before in order to be inclusive. But her offers and her messaging were very confusing to that market. And so she was missing the relevance factor in her message and her speaking and in her offers. And that's why she was really struggling to get clients. Like if somebody talked to her one-on-one, they're like, boom, got it. But all the kind of like the one-dimensional material she was putting out was not sticking for people. And so relevance is like your e-ticket to being top of mind. And when you have relevance, you are in front of your ideal clients over and over and over again. So how do you create relevance? First of all, you need to fine-tune your messaging and your offers so it's very clear what the big problem you solve is, or what the benefit or the promise is that you deliver. So your ideal clients go, boom, Susie does this, and when I'm looking for that, I know I'm going to hire Susie. Or when Jonathan is in front of his ideal client speaking, they go, oh my God, he's speaking to me. The relevance factor is deep. I've done entire episodes about relevance in the past. I'm not going to unpack that any further today. But you can be relevant and still be invisible if you're missing part 2, which is consistent visibility. As we have a noisy market right now, if you are not consistently visible with a relevant message, it's very easy to still be a best kept secret and not be top of mind. And if you are struggling with this, chances are either A, you've never really done the mapping between who your ideal client is, what their key problems are, and how that matches your superpower. And your superpower is the unique factor of the problem you solve and what makes you uniquely qualified to do that. So the other piece of the puzzle here is if you are really looking at like, wow, am I relevant? It may just be a slight tweaks. You may just need some slight transformation to your message, or you might need to up your visibility level. So many of my clients come into our programs here and they are super talented and they've got great messaging, but they're invisible because they're not doing the work to get out in front of their audience on a regular basis. The other side of it is you may have been doing the same thing for so long that it isn't relevant anymore. It may not be what's top of mind. When economies crash and when industries get, overly stacked with choices, like everybody sounds the same, you may need to reinvent your brand or your business for that matter to be more relevant. And I went through that. My first 10 years, gangbusters growth, but then I hit this pocket of like, wow, I don't know, is what I'm doing really relevant? Because the world around me wasn't interested in the work I did at that point. They were, looking at new things that they wanted to achieve and accomplish, and I had to reinvent my brand to keep the relevance factor high. It took a little bit of tweaking to do it, but eventually kind of found, again, that new brand positioning, that new offering that lit my fire, but solved the big problem. So relevance is the single most important thing that you do always, but right now in particular. And if you aren't sure you're relevant, I would highly recommend that we chat, book in a fast track call, and let's figure out where the relevance factor is out of sync for you. And now part of being relevant is being aligned. And so this is our second factor. And this is huge. There's a lot of people that say, do what you have to, do what you must to be successful. And I do believe that we need to be all in on our goal. But if you lose alignment with your uniqueness, with your superpowers, with what lights your fire, just to be relevant, none of this is going to work. So the big secret sauce here is be relevant and be aligned. We have to find the and piece of it. So I've worked with a lot of people who've been coached and mentored to sacrifice their alignment to make money. And it's not a sustainable practice. So how do we know if we're aligned? Well, first of all, you feel it. Like you feel it in your body. You probably don't have motivation. You're losing your inspiration. And that doesn't mean you have to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater, as that horrible saying goes. You may need a little bit of tweaking. You may need to reinvent your brand. Or we may need to lean deeper into what your superpowers are. So that's one of the things I love doing with clients is really do a deep dive into like, what are your superpowers? What's making you unique? What lights your fire? And for some people, you may be so disconnected from it that you don't know. And so that's where I turn to some tools like human design and the gene keys, which is not the thing I do, but there are people that specialize in that. I find that more I understand my human design and the human design of my clients, the more organic, sustainable power emerges from them. And human design, if you're unfamiliar with that, is a tool of helping people understand what their what their energy system is, like how do they, what's their best work pattern, what are the things that light them up, what is their purpose on this planet. How do they make decisions so that those decisions are very aligned with who they are? So there's a lot to human design. That's just kind of the top level piece of it. My friend Samantha Riley has been using it for a while in her program. If you follow our other podcast, Next Level Influence, then you've probably heard us talking about human design there. It's been so instrumentally powerful for me to dig deeper into my own human design and understand why my energy patterns are so different than some of my peers, and I'm never going to create the same kind of business as they do. And that is why you cannot do cookie cutters. You cannot just buy someone's system and have the most powerful version that helps you rise above industry turbulence. Because if you're not aligned with your unique superpowers and your energy systems, everything you create is not going to be a long-term success. I had a client one time who she came to me and said, I want to grow the reach of my business. I want more revenue, but I'm exhausted and I can't do it like this anymore. And one of the things I looked at with her was that she'd been following all of these mentors and all of these other people, but never really took the time to understand what her desires were. What were her values? What were the things that she was uniquely qualified to do? And tuning back into that helped her figure out where she had conflict about growth. So it's a very powerful step to take. Now, there's a lot of practical, strategic things that you can do to rise above industry turbulence. Relevance and being aligned are two of the most important. Like everything else is figure outable once you get those pieces in place. And there's also a third thing that I think has to happen to be able to rise above what's happening around you. And that's mindset. Okay, so mindset is so important. It is the fuel that allows you to continue to go when things are getting really challenging. And they will get challenging for everybody. Like it's just the human experience. And so I'm a huge fan of resilience. And so part one of resilience is knowing that we are going to do things that are going to feel hard. When we're doing our purpose work, when we're doing the things we're put on this planet to do, it's not always going to be ice cream and rainbows. Like we're going to have to stretch and become people that we didn't even know we could be. And the payoff is amazing. And that doesn't mean it has to be hard all the time, but sometimes we are going to have to do inner work and do outer things that challenge us beyond what we thought we were capable of doing. And so our mindset, like what we tell ourselves about this, is oftentimes going to dictate whether or not we pull it off. And I have a tool that I teach called the 80% plan. I find that planning for what we want, but giving ourselves that 20% room for things to change and have to be figured out in a new way, like the adapting to the market and figuring out what's going to land, what's not. Like we can't figure it all out. As a matter of fact, I'll link that episode up in the show notes. It's a very early episode for Amplify Your Success, but it was very popular and people loved it. So I'll link it back up for you if you want to go back and listen to it. And that brings me to another piece of resilience, is to be willing to adapt on demand versus react or retreat, right? Some people retreat when things aren't going the way they want them to, and they tell themselves like, I can't do this. It's not working. Maybe I shouldn't be in this industry. That's not really true. It's that you've been unwilling to adapt to what the market feedback is. You've been attached to something and it being a certain way, instead of saying, okay, I need to have some flexibility here and try something else. And on the other side, you may be reacting instead of putting yourself forward with a plan and working the plan to the best of your ability, and then course correcting that 20%. So the skill set of adapting, because you have a plan and you're working a plan, but then you're willing to kind of course correct as you go, is a huge piece of resilience. Now, the last factor, a little bit of a bonus factor in rising above your industry turbulence, is to recognize that you cannot do things the way you've always done them and expect new results. Okay, this is a piece of mindset, but it almost deserves its own factor. And this is a year to stand out and not blend in. If you are going to serve more people, if you are going to grow the reach of your business and have that revenue match, you have to be willing to take bold action. This is not a year to play small. This is not a year to fly under the radar and just do the bare minimum. This is a year to really stretch and choose something that is going to move some energy, that's going to give you some momentum, and it's going to put you on the map. And that is up to you. Like I find that when I'm working with my clients on what's their authority platform for the year, like what's the thing they're going to really make a big amount of noise about in their industry, and to really be seen and attract clients and move those clients, or attract leads and move them into paying clients. Like everybody has their own thing. It might be having a live event. It might be launching that podcast. It might be finally getting out and consistently being on other people's podcasts and online shows. Everybody has their own blueprint of where their authority brand needs to be visible. And that's why we start the year really doing the authority blueprint and figuring out, where is my brand going this year? Like, what are the things that are going to move the needle for me? And I will not let my clients play small. Playing small is just like saying, I don't believe in what I'm doing. Here's the thing, my friend. You need to believe in you. I believe in you. That's why I create this podcast, because I believe in you. And if you're going to bring your work to the world in a bigger way and get paid well to do it, you've got to claim your authority, and you've got to be willing to shake things up a little bit. So I hope you will join me this year in really making the decision to take some bold leaps, to invest in you and the work that you're bringing out to the world in a bigger way, and to shatter some limits. Let's make this the year it happens, okay? All right, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you've got a bold goal, you've got a big theme, you've chosen something to really move the needle, tell me about it. I want to hear. Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.